time for Wednesday's hour number 2 on Hashtag Daily K with your host, Peter Bint. Korean dramas, movies, and even lyrics. Why is the world paying attention to Korean stories?
From classics to modern masterpieces, time to dig deep into the charms of Korean literature.
On Check It Out
with Paul Matthews.
Every Wednesday at this time, we'll introduce various Korean literature pieces to you and talk about their Korean cultural implications. Hey there, have you had a good week?
You don't sound very excited to have me in the studio.
I'm just reading the script word for word today. Hey there.
I think there's 2 words that you need to say to me.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
I was going to. My mind did not remember the other day. I saw it somewhere, and I was just pretending.
Didn't
like,
send me a
happy
birthday greeting or anything.
I was going to say happy birthday and then be like, of course it's not your birthday, but it was your birthday, wasn't it?
It was on Saturday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I never send, if this makes you feel better, I never send birthday greetings to anybody bar my wife.
Yeah. Not even your kids?
No, because I see them, so I don't need to send them greetings. So I just say a happy birthday. So I never send it to anybody. Yeah. So that should make you feel good, right?
Did you get me a present?
I also never get people presents, apart from my wife, kids, and my mother.
But I got you a present.
What did you get me?
Do you want it? Do you want the present?
Now?
Yeah.
When my birthday is in August.
Yeah, I've got to go early.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to, yeah.
Okay,
what is
give you
it?
a present.
Now?
Yeah, it's for you.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's Peter Bint. Oh, look at those eyebrows.
They are big eyebrows.
No wonder my daughter thinks I look like an eagle. I think she thinks my eyebrows look like the wings of an eagle.
I think that's fair enough.
That's
it's
lovely.
a fair statement. I thought because you're talking about walls today.
Wow.
You could put it up on a wall.
I don't know. I don't know if it deserves to be on a wall.
Oh, well. Oh, thanks.
Maybe somewhere in a bin somewhere. No, I'm kidding. Peter Bint. Oh, you see what I did there? No.
Yeah.
So now I have a present to give you. This is by a good friend of mine. Oh, that's lovely. Did you do that now?
Yeah, I did that in the last hour. I'm listening to
Brilliant. It looks a little bit like the photo that we use for Peter Bint when the songs go out, actually. Oh, lovely.
It may well have been the same one.
It does look like me as well, doesn't it? Goodness
I
gracious.
was trying to make it to look like you. That was the whole point.
I'm an ugly old mug, aren't I?
You are.
So how are you, Paul, apart from your birthday?
I'm good.
Birthday lasagna was good.
Birthday lasagna was very good. I recommend it to everybody who can make lasagna.
Have
make yourself a birthday lasagna.
Yeah. I've never heard that as a tradition, even in Italy.
Not. No, it's
your
not.
tradition.
It's my tradition because lasagnas are delicious. If it's good enough for Garfield, it's good enough for me.
Did you have some bechamel in there?
Of course. I make a bechamel sauce lasagna, not a ricotta lasagna.
Amazing. Is that not tricky?
No, it's really easy.
Okay, well, next time for my birthday, instead of just a on-the-fly drawing, I'd like a lasagna, please. Yes,
fine.
A home-baked one.
Can we also, speaking of anniversaries and birthdays, can we also talk about hashtag wall a little bit seriously?
Oh, have you not got some dad joke to do?
No, because
wall.
Because today is not a great day in Korea, but it's a very important day for remembering. Because with hashtag wall, the thing that I remember back, well, guys, a decade ago or so, the portraits of the high school kids on the wall who lost their lives in the Sewol ferry disaster.
Today is the 11th anniversary, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm sorry to bring the show down, but it feels like it's a very suitable link to the hashtag and something that we should all take a moment to remember.
Yeah, if you are not familiar with that event, the Sewol Ho disaster, the sinking of the Sewol ferry, where students, the majority of those who lost their lives were students.
Yeah, high school kids.
Then go and check it out. It was ridiculous, and that's what eventually led to our previous, I suppose, impeachment as well.
It was, yeah, that was
the catalyst.
That was the spark point for, well, I don't know, a year and a half or so of political unrest.
That really brings to mind walls like that. I don't know if it's still there, but when I went to the UK last year, I think it was, there was the remembrance wall for the COVID victims down by the Thames River. That was really poignant as well.
And if you're coming to Seoul, I would recommend going to Yongsan and going to the War Memorial Museum.
Oh, I was there on the weekend, actually.
Yeah, and so you saw the walls with the names for different countries of all the soldiers who gave their lives for Korea. it's a very sobering thing when you see those lists of names, but I think very, very important.
Yeah, it's old school, but it really rams home how many people gave their lives. And that's like foreign troops. Koreans, way more names would be on the walls, right? CT says, I was staying in Busan, facing out to the ocean when the Sewol tragedy happened. It was one of the worst days in my life. It's one of those events where everyone remembers exactly where they were. I was in the Samsung hospital over in Irondong, checking my father out, and it was just like unfolding in front of us, right? You could see it sinking and whatnot.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you were glued to the television or glued to the radio, but there was nothing you could do. You were just watching everything unfold. And if you weren't alive during one of those moments, it's like 9/11 as well.
Yeah.
If you didn't experience it, it's very hard for someone to explain what it was like because it was so extraordinarily awful.
Yeah, absolutely shocking. You can keep on sending in messages about Wall and what it means to you as well. But we need to mention that your wife, Paul...
Yes, my wife.
...in a Korean drama the other
not
day.
just a Korean drama.
A brilliant Korean drama.
Well, I think it's fairly high up on the chart, seeing it was the first episode of the first series.
Wow, the spin-off to Hospital Playbook, right?
Yes, Resident Playbook.
Oh, wow. And she plays a patient in that.
She does. She's just got one scene, but it's quite a powerful scene. So if you want to watch it, I think it's on the certain streaming channel all over the world where you get a lot of Korean dramas.
Yes.
It's episode 1. My wife is in I think it's about 37th minute.
And our producer and writers were really impressed by her acting. I think not knowing her background in theatre as well as I do. So that's like her thing. She's
an actor,
professional, right?
Yeah, she's retired at the moment. But
Wow, that's unbelievable. Is there anything else in the pipeline? Like, is she maybe appearing in some more episodes?
No, because she's going through chemotherapy at the moment, Peter. It's a little difficult to work.
But how did this come up?
This came about 2 years ago.
This is old?
Yes, it's that old because there's been a whole thing with doctors.
Oh my goodness, the release was delayed. We talked about it on the show. Oh, that's how long ago it filmed?
Yeah, she filmed 2 years ago.
Wowzers, I did not know that. Go and check it out and write up your reviews to us, positive ones,
Not yet,
of course.
though. Listen to the rest of the show.
Of course, because today we're going back to poetry.
Are we?
Are we not?
Yes, we are. I thought we'd have a look at some more poetry today. And again, it's one of those collections that is free online. So anybody can get it, no excuse. It's courtesy of a translator who passed away a couple of years ago, but we featured quite a few times, Kevin O'Rourke. And it's called Songgang Kasa, a Sjijo Poet at the Court of King Sonjo. And it's, the poems are written by Jeong Cheol.
Okie dokie, Cheol. So this is just a collection of those old shijos.
Not just shijos, it's also about these special kasa poems, these essay poems or lyric poems that are longer. And because they're long, we can't feature them on the show. So we're going to look at the shorter ones today. So we've got 2 pairs of poems and then a final poem. But there's lots in this collection, long and short on all sorts of themes. And he was considered to be one of the best poets of his time. We've not featured him on the show before, so it seems like it's time to do it.
Lovely. What are the poems about? Are they many different themes?
Yes, and we're going to... I've picked 3 interesting themes for me, at least.
Okay.
You may disagree.
I probably will. Tell us about the author.
Jeong Cheol, again, first time featuring him. He was born in 1536, died in 1593. It was around the time of Lee Tae-ge and Yulgok and all these other sort of big poets and political figures. And it was also a time when politics was a dangerous business. We had kings and princes and queens fighting for who should have control of the throne. And while they were grasping at each other's throats, that meant that sometimes Jeong Cheol's luck was good and sometimes not so good.
In favour or out of it?
Yeah, when he was a kid, out of favour. His whole family, thanks to his father's work, were exiled. So he spent the first part of his childhood out of the country. His brother died on the way to exile. Then returned to Korea and studied under some of the big masters of poetry of the time. Took the big exams. And I'm sure you've talked about the civil service exams on the show before.
That was
very difficult.
Aim for all the young bun, right?
Yeah, all the noblemen. If you wanted to serve in the royal court or to be part of the government, you had to take these series of exams. He did it. He went on to become Inspector General.
Wow.
Talking about one of the highest positions. But again, he had lots of good friends, but also quite a few enemies.
Uh-oh.
But the one thing that everyone agrees on is his poetry is excellent. So again, I mentioned before his kasa, his essay poems, and you can read them all in this collection.
Fantastic. Kevin O'Rourke, unfortunately, passed away a few years back, but has done a lot of these translations, right?
Yeah, short stories and poetry seem to be his thing. He'd been in Korea since 1964, an Irish Catholic priest.
Wow.
He was also the first foreign national to get a PhD in Korean literature from Korea University. And I think he was one of those, the granddaddies of translation in English. And, sadly he's passed away, but his collections still remain. And luckily, these poetry collections are available for free.
Fantastic. We're going to put up the cover to this book when Paul does the readings as well, so you can check it out. But you can find it online for free as well. Just search out the title there. What's the first poem about? You're going to preview it, or we're going to just jump straight in?
We've got 2 poems. See if you can see the link. I think it's going to be fairly clear. Were I brilliant, my love would not forsake me. Better be ordinary, for then I could stroll with my love. Not even being ordinary, I fear I'll never see my love. Butterflies hover in pairs where flowers blossom thick. Orioles perch in pairs on the branches of green willows. Flying creatures, crawling creatures, all are in pairs. Tell me, why am I alone without a mate?
We have to talk about it. So I think the theme pretty obvious.
You don't sound enthusiastic. We have to talk about it. This is good stuff.
Very short but sweet poems, right? Just a few lines each, but it's about being by themselves, right? Not having their other half.
Forlorn, very romantic. And, a lot of poetry is about romance. But I picked these 2 because let me ask.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Keir Starmer writing this kind of poetry?
I don't think so.
No way. No. Absolutely no way.
But we're saying someone pretty high up back in the day was doing this on the side.
This is a politician. This is a guy who was, involved in life and death matters in the running of the country.
Is that like an older thing then, maybe? Because Churchill was pretty arty, wasn't he? A good writer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily an older thing. I think it's more that politicians are professionals now.
They're just trained politicians.
People only want to be a politician, whereas someone like Churchill was growing up, was thinking all sorts of things and dipping his toes in all sorts of waters.
That would make sense.
Yeah, and so you do have some people like, I don't like Boris Johnson, but I have to say that Boris Johnson is very well read, has a great knowledge of all sorts of things and can spout Latin off or Homer's Odyssey when he wants to. And we're missing a lot of that in politicians these days.
We need more well-educated, well-read, well-rounded politicians, perhaps.
More empathetic politicians.
That would also be lovely, wouldn't it?
Politicians who can actually consider human beings as humans. The other thing is, you know what yesterday was? Not my birthday.
4:15.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Black Day.
So that's 4:14, isn't it? 14.
Sorry, you know what Monday was?
2 days ago. Black Day.
Black Day.
Black Day.
So I got...
Jajangmyeon Day.
Yeah, which
That's
is...
odd. We had Jajangmyeon Day on the weekend, actually. The day for singles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the day when if you don't have a partner, you basically go to the Chinese restaurant and eat black noodles in the hope that maybe there'll be someone who's also eating black noodles.
Probably not a good idea if you're wearing a white T-shirt. I don't think that'll get you a date quickly.
That said... Great comfort food.
Oh, it is.
A bowl of proper good black bean noodles.
Delicious.
Will heal a broken heart.
I didn't get this first poem, though, because, okay, he seems to be saying, I wish I was brilliant, because then my love would not forsake me.
Yeah.
But then, in the next line, saying, better be ordinary, because then I could stroll with my love.
Yeah.
But then, being ordinary, I fear I'll never see my love.
Not even being ordinary.
Ah, okay.
He's not even up to that standard according to his self-description.
Dear. Okay.
Yeah, if he was brilliant, it would be all right. If he was ordinary, it would be all right. But the fact is, he's not even ordinary.
He's less. He's like in the doldrums.
Yeah, which is how I think some of us feel when we're out of love, when we've lost a love. That
why does nobody love me?
Why am I worse than the worms at the bottom of the garden?
Oh, that's true, isn't it?
And the thing is, you can now relate to that instantly, can't you?
Yes,
now
for sure.
Now that you've properly read it and understand
it. I understand it, yes.
And that's what I find amazing, is that 500 years ago, this politician involved in court intrigue is writing poems. Both of these, I think, you could take this to any teenager anywhere in the world who's, sort of going through that period of romance or lack of romance, and they would connect with them immediately.
Yeah, especially the other poem as well, the second one. Everybody's in love, even the butterflies and the bugs and whatnot, but I'm not. When you're single, you do feel like the world is a couple, right? Yeah. Everyone's in love.
And so I thought these two were perfect, because also this show's about culture, but what else is it about?
Love.
No.
Compassion.
No.
Korea.
Specifically...
Culture.
No, said culture.
Seoul, Jeju, food.
What do you play on the show?
Songs, music, K-pop.
Yeah, and again, sorry for the long-witted roundabout way, because Peter's not with it today.
No.
But the point is that he's like the K-pop stars. Is that he's writing these poems, and poems are basically songs without music.
There you go.
And they would sometimes be sung.
Yep.
That are connecting with everybody, especially teenagers.
A lot of K-pop is love being in it and then love being out of it, right?
Yeah.
On one side of the fence or the
other.
other.
Or looking back on love.
Yeah.
Or looking forward to love.
I think this would make a nice song, talking about the butterflies and the orioles and whatnot, being all together.
So I thought this was appropriate. It felt like a good connection to... not yesterday, but the day before yesterday, but also to Korea and to K-pop and to the modern Korean wave. And now I've got two more poems, the next two poems. But these, despite being about love, are about a different kind of love.
Oh, a different kind of love. Okie dokie, let's get to them and discuss afterwards.
Father's honour, mother's affection. My father gave me birth, my mother sustenance. Without father and mother, would I have life? How can I repay a favour that is as boundless as heaven? Filial piety. While your parents are alive, do all that filial piety requires. It's too late for regret when they go. Filial piety is one service you can't then provide, though you try for the rest of your life.
Love for your parents.
Yeah, I bet your mum will love these poems.
Yeah, she's right up this alley of me doing all I can for her while she's here. And that's the old Korean frame of mind, right? We don't even use that phrase at all, right? Filial piety in English.
When I came here, I was struck because I'd never heard that expression before. I knew the words, and it took me a while to actually work out what everyone was talking about, because it was talked about a lot in English in Korea.
Yeah.
And we do talk about it, and the filial piety is the wish for the children to honour the parents and to do well to the parents, to make sure that their parents are comfortable and happy and do everything they can because they owe their parents so much.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot more even in Korean, right? Hyodo being like a good son, or hyo, this filial piety.
Not a walnut, surprisingly.
No, Hodu. And yeah, so there's that expectation. Still, it is changing though, for sure. Like more modern families are not expecting quite as much, but still more than the West, I'd say, way more. You're expected to do certain things for your parents as a kind of repayment for maybe what comes up in this poem, that you wouldn't be here without them, right?
Exactly. And I thought this was, again, this is in some ways universal. I think everybody can connect to these poems talking about parents and what you owe your parents. But it is something that, unlike the first two, doesn't quite work the same way in Korea anymore. That we've lost some of that. For example, and this is a sad thing to talk about, but it's worth talking about, when a parent dies here in Korea, well, we have this mourning period. We have a 3 to 5 day wake, sometimes just 2 days. It all depends on when they pass away and when they get to the hospital. And during that time, people visit and you mourn and you wear the proper mourning clothes, and then you have the funeral. And then maybe, depending on your religion, certainly for my wife's family, 50 days later, you go to the temple and you have another ceremony. And that's about it. Every year on the day of their death, and also on the big holidays like Chuseok and Seollal, you will maybe prepare an ancestral table for them, if you still believe in that. But that's about it. As opposed to the Joseon Dynasty, if we go back 200-300 years, where 3 years, I think, was the allotted period of official mourning.
Yeah, going back to your hometown. Even if you were like a civil servant or something, you'd take a 3-year break and go there. It features in a few saguks, right? Historical dramas.
And also some historical films, you'll see it.
Yeah.
And you're not just wearing black or white. It's worse, you're wearing sackcloth. You're wearing hessian.
It's like meant to be uncomfortable, right? All part of that sacrifice. I think, that is going to be quite difficult to uphold in 2025. Right?
Nobody does.
No.
But I thought that was interesting that poetry is sometimes completely universal and sometimes we are a step away from it because of history or because of culture. But at the same time, we all understand how much we love our parents. Not everybody.
No,
I know some people may not have good relationships, but for most people, the love their parents gave them is something that they feel they never can repay back, and it feels even worse after they've passed away, because what else can I do for you? Nothing.
I think once one of your parents passes away, your view of that really does become a bit more Korean, I think. You're like, wait, once they're gone, I can't do anything for them. And actually, I am so grateful for this, that, and the other. Again, bad parents aside.
Exactly. I mean, I'm really sad that you lost your father, a few years ago. But at the same time, you were able to have that realization before your mother passes away, that she's still here and that you're able to be the son maybe that she was hoping for.
And I guess in a lot of Western culture, once you're an adult and you're married, your parents will often say, it's your life, go and enjoy it, don't worry about us, don't fuss about us. Here in Korea, the older generation, they wouldn't, well, maybe some of them would say outright fuss about us, but they'd expect a certain degree of this filial piety and coming to see them on a regular basis, and maybe bringing them into your house when they get to a certain age, or if they're alone and, looking after them. And maybe that's too far for certain families. It's obviously case by case, but I do believe it would be lovely to your parents if they've been lovely to you when you're younger. And don't just think of it as, that was their duty and I'll do it to my kids. No, pay it back a little bit to your parents.
Absolutely. And what I also like about this is you've got maybe a middle-aged man, a grumpy ajoshi, writing this beautiful, emotional poetry. And that's the other thing. I've got to say, did you see the drama Adolescence?
Oh, I've not.
It was a big hit, but I've avoided it too because it sounds like it's too painful to watch. But one thing that it started is a discussion how especially young boys, young men, are getting sort of swept up in the manosphere and becoming unemotional or trying to push emotions away and becoming tainted or damaged because of it. And you look at this guy in the 1500s who was, again, a politician, and yet he was able to write so emotionally in his poetry, I think is so special. And it's a sort of a warning from the past for all of us that we need to be like this. We need to be willing to open up our hearts on paper.
Yeah, CT was something great, a bit of wisdom from his grandma, RIP, teaching you that it's harder to keep one's arm up than to leave it down, meaning it's difficult to take care of those above, arm up, compared to our descendants, arms down.
Very true.
That comes naturally, doesn't it?
Yeah, but at the same time, exercise.
Yes, arms up, everybody. I'm talking to my children in particular. Let's get some Yuntantan, and we'll be back with our third poem. Well, this is a single poem, the last one.
It is.
Right? Okay.
An inducement to imbibe. Let's drink a cup of wine. Let's drink another. With petals from flowers we've cut, let's mark our cups. Let's drink and drink, let's drink forever. For when at last this body dies, it will be wrapped in a straw mat and strapped to a jiggy, or perhaps it will be borne on an elegantly decked bier. 10,000 standard bearers shedding tears. Either way, once among the reeds and rushes, the oaks and willows, when the sun is yellow and the moon is white, when fine rain falls or thick snowflakes flurry, when whirlwinds blow a mournful dirge, who will offer me a cup? Need I add, when monkeys whistle on my grave, won't it be too late for regrets?
There was, for the first time in ages, the Arirang DJs and writers and producers. Where's she on Friday, Paul?
I was not invited.
As I said, Arirang DJs, writers and producers.
I was a DJ. I do write my script.
Yeah, well, we couldn't invite Adrian Lee and Young Kim from back in the day. It's only current ones. I do apologise. But, yeah, we had a drink and it was lovely to do that after so long. We haven't done it since, like, pre or during early COVID times.
Yeah, and it's nice. You get stuck at a table and you don't get to say hello to everyone.
No.
But there's the whole communal atmosphere of everyone's just having a bit of pork and a few drinks together.
Exactly. And I know drinking, I think, has now been pretty much proven to be bad no matter how much and what it is. Wine is no
What do you
longer
mean
said.
pretty much? It's completely and utterly.
Yeah, but for a while, people were like, oh, a glass of wine a day is good for you. No. Alcohol is just toxic to our bodies. But
Still love it.
yes, exactly. That's where this comes from. And I'm guessing he maybe did write this when he had a drink or two in him, like you read it.
I mean, apologies to anybody who wanted me to read this poem sober, but I felt it was only fitting that, this is sort of the poem when you were drinking with your friends, with the other poets, that you would stand up with a bowl of makgeolli in your hand and you would recite this poem in your drunken stupor. But it's true that we need to live for the moment. And that doesn't mean getting drunk every night, but it does mean enjoying ourselves, having moments with friends and family and living our lives.
Yeah, everyone's got a different balance point, right? So as long as you're happy with it, right, maybe once a week or once a month or once a year, but you got to have at least one time, right, where you can let your hair down, not think of the consequences.
But it's not just going drinking. I mean, going to a theme park with your friends, or going to the movies with your loved one. Or, having a coffee with an old friend from school, things like that. Yeah. These are all the moments that sometimes pass us by all too quickly.
Yeah, and when the monkey's whistling on your grave, Paul, it's going to be too late for regrets.
And I'm 1 year closer. I think the other reason I chose this poem was this weekend was my birthday, and every birthday I think you take a moment to consider your own mortality.
You look at the number and you're like, oh, goodness. You know what I do? I always look at that number and then I remember my dad or my mum at that number. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's the very scary. Yeah. The other one I do is I take my number of years on Earth, subtract it from this year, and then subtract it from my birthday and see what that time difference is.
Oh, really?
So I was born in 1978. So if I go back 47 years, that's 1931.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Just after the big depression and whatnot, the Second World War.
Just coming into full fascism and Nazism.
That's interesting.
Well, doesn't history repeat itself? So the point is, though, that we do need to appreciate life. No, we don't need to drink to do it, Peter. But I love Jeong Cheol as a poet because if you had read a history book about him, I think you would probably go, oh yeah, he's a stuffed shirt. He's got a step upper lip. Yeah. He's just interested in ruling the country or running away from people who want to kill him. But in fact, if you look at his writing, there is so much passion about it. And he's not just one of these poets who only writes about nature and the bamboo under the moonlight. Yeah. He's writing about all sorts of things. And he writes about things that even in 2025 feel so relevant.
Yeah, so many different topics that we've covered in our short time today, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think that this book is well worth reading. Because it's also the sort of book where you don't have to read it from cover to cover. You can literally open it on any page and go, okay, this is today's poem. What am I going to get from this?
Yeah, what am I going to learn? CT saying filial piety is not something emphasised in the West. We're now 3 generations under one roof. It's heartwarming to see my son, who works at Macca's, buy some apple pie for his gran after his shift. No teaching required. Yeah, I think it doesn't need to be overemphasised.
No.
And we're not saying in the West, kids are horrible to their parents and grandparents. There's a lot of caring grandchildren and children. It's just the maybe atmosphere of the family.
We're more conscious of it here. And it's all about modelling. Yeah. I'm sure that your son sees the way that you behave towards your mum. Yeah. And takes that as the example. Oh, that's how I'm going to live my life.
That's why I'm doing it, because I want him to come to my house very often when I'm old and lonely.
Yeah, which is fair enough. And I think also we've been talking about all these different topics, and thanks, CT, for your grandma's words and other things, is that if you want to understand Korea fully, poetry is a really good thing to have in your back pocket.
Oh, modern or old, it doesn't matter.
Because poets are able to capture the feeling of a country in a poem, or maybe that moment in time in just a stanza, or even just an event in a single phrase. It can be summed up in such a way that will be particularly of that country, of that moment.
Yeah, it really does act like a summary, like a shortcut. What you might get from like a whole book, you could get from a few lines of a poem, right? Yeah, I think so. Nyan saying, happy belated birthday, Paul. I hope you had a smashing birthday.
No, it didn't smash anything, fortunately.
No, good.
Did get drunk, though.
Oh, did you have some wine?
I had some wine, I had some beer, I had some lasagna.
Rice wine?
No, grape wine.
Okay, grape wine, that's okay. Paul, thank you as ever for your wonderful readings. I especially enjoyed the last one, I got to say.
Oh, well, thanks to everyone. Thanks to the LTI Career for help with copyright permission as always. Thanks to Kevin O'Rourke for his translations of centuries of poetry every single time we featured him. May he rest in peace with whistling monkeys on his grave.
Fantastic. Your one-line review.
A comprehensive look at an important poet in Korean history and literature.
And next week's book.
Next week, we're going to look at not poetry, but it's poetry adjacent. It's called Indeterminate Inflorescence, Notes from a Poetry Class by Yi Sung-bok, translated by Anton Her. So it's it's a collection of notes. So we'll see what people think.
That's interesting, isn't it? Okie dokie. We got to say thank you to the LTI of Korea. The literature.
I already did that. I just did that.
Oh, did you?
I did it. You weren't listening because you didn't ask for the one-line review, and so you just said thank you, and so I went into my normal thank yous.
Sorry, I did it in the wrong way.
You did it in the wrong way.
Because Jack Kim's message was catching my eye. He says, you don't need to hide your moshism, your stylishness or your coolness, Paul. So don't let your hair hang down all the time. Sometimes tie it up, wear a hat, or give it a shave. He's saying he's seen you on Instagram with me looking very cool and smart. But Paul, I think, brings the style to the studio every Wednesday. And today you're getting to key levels of low-cut shirts there. I love it, Paul. Wow.
You want one more button? You can have one more button.
Do you know what my wife taught me yesterday? I'd never heard this. That hair on your chest there between the nips is known as, I think it's mesengi, that really thin, wiry seaweed. That's the first time
I've got quite a lot of seaweed.
I would gobble it up. Paul,
you can have my miok a little later.
I will see you next Wednesday,
Goodbye.
buddy. You can listen to Check It Out with Paul Matthews on Arirang Radio's #DailyK every Wednesday from 10 a.m. KST.